Unit 6, Reading 2.
Before Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860, Southern states had already begun to leave the U.S. Although Lincoln promised that he would not end slavery, in early 1861 the Confederacy fired the first shots of the war. Lincoln refused to allow the country to break apart, and he ordered the Union Army to capture the Southern capital in Richmond, Virginia. Unfortunately, the Union began to be defeated in battle again and again. The future began to look dark. Lincoln did not originally plan to end slavery. Slave states like Kentucky and Missouri had not left the country, and Lincoln hoped that Confederate states might choose to rejoin in the future. However, Lincoln listened to abolitionists, and he slowly changed his mind as the war continued. In 1862, Lincoln issued a famous declaration, the Emancipation Proclamation. It said that on January 1, 1863, all slaves in the rebelling areas were to be freed. This meant that the war was no longer about keeping the country together, but also about ending slavery. Lincoln started to believe that the country could not survive if only half of the nation was free. Lincoln's most famous speech was the 1863 Gettysburg Address. It was written for the opening of a war cemetery after the large and bloody Battle of Gettysburg. In this emotional and historic speech, Lincoln stated his belief that the war was being fought to save the nation, preserve democratic government, and bring a new birth of freedom. During the war, there was an election in 1864, and Lincoln was elected president again. By 1865, the U.S. Constitution was finally amended to abolish slavery throughout the entire nation. On April 9, 1865, the defeated Confederacy finally surrendered at the small town of Appomattox in Virginia. On April 13, 1865, soon after the war ended, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated while watching a play in a theater. He was shot in the head by a Southerner named John Wilkes Booth. Lincoln's vice president, Andrew Johnson, soon became president, but he was not well prepared for the country's giant problems. The war was over and the time called Reconstruction began. New conflicts quickly appeared. The problems of Reconstruction included how to manage the defeated and bitter South, how to reunite the divided nation, and, most importantly, how to turn millions of newly freed slaves into citizens. Nearly all of the former slaves were poor and illiterate. Many white Southerners held land and political power across the South and resisted new changes, sometimes violently. Protecting the rights of freed slaves would be a difficult problem for many years. Land in the South was rich for farming, but many black farmers did not own land and continued to be poor. However, Congress was firmly controlled by Republicans who were able to use the memory of the bloody Civil War to keep a political advantage for the next few decades. Meanwhile, other changes were happening across the country. Western lands continued to attract new settlers, and Native American societies continued to be defeated. The Industrial Revolution also slowly changed the national economy in new and unexpected ways.